Ladies and gentlemen, a storm is stealthily building power over the Pacific, and its impacts may soon be felt throughout the world. Consider a scenario in which the products you rely on every day, such as the smartphone in your pocket and the solar panels on your roof, suddenly double in price, or worse, disappear totally. It's no longer simply a hypothetical. This world may be closer than we realize. According to recent reports, China, the global economy's industrial powerhouse, is tightening its hold on exports to the United States. This poses an essential question. Would China's forceful action cause smaller nations to reassess their dependence on a U.S.-led trade system? Could this mark the end of an era in which the U.S. economy dominated global trade? For decades, the global economy has followed a U.S.-centric paradigm. However, China's ambitious move toward economic independence has altered the balance. Bloomberg reported that U.S. imports of Chinese goods decreased by a stunning 20% last year, indicating that a purposeful decoupling is already underway. Meanwhile, commerce between China and growing economies such as Brazil, India, and the ASEAN countries is not only surviving but booming. So, here's a question that might shape the next phase of global commerce. Is this the tipping point where the United States loses its economic leadership? Let us break it down. In 2023 alone, China's trade with the BRICS nations increased by 30%, indicating a strategic shift away from the U.S.-dominated economic system. This shift is more than a trend. It is a transition that has the potential to dramatically restructure global power relations in ways we have not seen before. Now, let us discuss rare earth minerals. Over 90% of these key materials, used in everything from electronics to military equipment, are processed in China. A White House assessment released in 2021 described the United States' reliance on Chinese rare earths as a national security issue. Despite the warning, no serious progress has been made to reduce this reliance. With the possibility of an export freeze, businesses in the United States that rely on Chinese components, automotive manufacturing, renewable energy, and technology, face devastating shortages. Think about it. The United States manufactures only 12% of the world's semiconductors, but China controls more than half of the supply chain. Could America's tech behemoths withstand such a blow? Peter Zhang, a geopolitical strategist, puts it best. China's export restriction systems pose a direct threat to the complacency of Western supply chains. What about the ripple effects? Catastrophic. And the clock is ticking. According to McKinsey, creating a self-sufficient semiconductor sector in the United States might cost up to $1 trillion and take more than 10 years. Can the U.S. afford this massive job, or will it be compelled to make harsh geopolitical concessions? Look around your house. Almost everything you possess, from your television to your kitchen appliances, is labeled "Made in China." What happens if these items become costly or unavailable? According to a Consumer Technology Association report, China accounts for 70% of all gadgets sold in the United States. Americans are already feeling the squeeze. The Wall Street Journal claims a 15% increase in electronics prices as a result of continued trade tensions. Now picture tripling that. A complete halt to exports would compel American consumers to rely on domestic replacements. But can U.S. manufacturers increase output quickly enough to fulfill demand? Households might face enormous costs. According to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, if tariffs and export restrictions remain in place, the average American family's annual spending may rise by $22,000. Will the people accept it? Or will mounting unhappiness spark a political backlash? Meanwhile, China has discreetly strengthened its commercial links with emerging economies through programs such as the Belt and Road. Brazil, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia are relocating to Beijing's orbit. This strategic decoupling indicates to smaller nations that they are no longer required to follow a U.S.-dominated economic system. Take India's recent decision to settle commerce with Russia in rupees rather than dollars, for example. ASEAN members are currently looking at alternative payment channels to lessen their dependency on Western financial institutions. The fundamental issue is whether this opens the door for these countries to create more fair global coalitions, or will it exacerbate the already fractured global economy? The development of multipolar trade blocs has already begun. According to a Financial Times study published in early 2024, the BRICS now account for more than 31% of global GDP, surpassing the G7. The US-centric economic order is beginning to crumble. Could this be the start of a new global economic architecture? Washington has long been critical of its trade imbalances with China, citing both economic imbalance and national security concerns. But here is the irony. Policymakers have limited exports, which might have helped to ease such deficits. For example, the U.S. restriction on advanced semiconductor exports to China, which was intended to halt Beijing's technical advancement, has instead increased the trade imbalance. Economist Jeffrey Sachs expressed it clearly. Restricting exports while seeking balanced trade is like filling one hole in a sinking ship and creating another. And things grow worse. Despite a substantial drop in imports, agricultural exports such as soybeans and wheat have increased by 25% in 2023. This paradox merely emphasizes the indisputable reality. The US and China are inextricably linked, and even the most strict measures cannot break that relationship. Some observers claim that the US containment policy is about more than simply national security. It is also about retaining global domination. However, China's technical achievements, ranging from artificial intelligence to quantum computing, are directly threatening that supremacy. A Carnegie Endowment paper warns that U.S. efforts aimed at limiting China may backfire by hastening China's self-sufficiency and innovation. The more the United States isolates China, the faster China will innovate. In reality, China's successes in 7-nanometer chip production, despite U.S. sanctions, reflect the country's tremendous endurance. This poses a disturbing question. Is the United States attempting to control China, or is it accidentally speeding its rise? Looking back in history, the United States has used similar strategies previously. Remember the 1980s, when Japanese automakers faced tariffs and trade restrictions to defend local industries? While these policies brought temporary comfort, they also compelled Japanese companies to innovate. Toyota and Honda are now worldwide heavyweights, accounting for a sizable percentage of the global market. Could a similar situation occur with China? As historian Graham Allison argues, if history teaches us anything, it is that economic containment frequently has unforeseen effects. Financial sanctions, a crucial instrument of U.S. foreign policy, are prompting governments to explore alternatives. China's economic accords with nations such as Russia and Brazil are gathering traction, and the BRICS alliance is considering a new reserve currency. The U.S. dollar has long dominated global reserves, but its proportion has fallen from 71% in 1999 to 58% in 2023. Could this indicate a decrease in dollar dominance? If the dollar loses its fundamental position, the U.S. will struggle to enforce its will on the world. Economist Eswar Prasad cautions that the risks are huge. A move away from the dollar might disrupt global markets and lead to inflationary pressures. For decades, the United States has promoted free trade and open markets. However, current acts like tariffs and blacklisting Chinese enterprises reflect a different reality. According to former Singaporean ambassador Khor Mani, the so-called rules-based system is disintegrating due to internal conflicts. Emerging countries are seeking reciprocity and mutual respect, pressing the United States to live up to its own standards. The major issue remains: is the globe transitioning to a multipolar system in which no single nation dominates? And if so, what role will the United States play in this new global order? While the obstacles are enormous, crises frequently create opportunities. Could this be the time for the U.S. to reinvest in its infrastructure, increase local manufacturing, and emphasize innovation. The United States has the means and talent to restore its industrial foundation, but it will need a fundamental adjustment in thinking, from obstruction to construction. Programs such as the CHIPS Act, which funds $52 billion to enhance semiconductor production, are positive moves forward. However, more comprehensive strategies will be required to guarantee resilience and competitiveness in the years ahead. As we conclude, one thing is clear: this is not an average trade interruption. The United States and the world economy are facing a watershed moment. The decisions made today will determine whether this crisis signifies the end of the U.S.-centric system or the beginning of a new era of American strength. But one issue remains: are policymakers prepared to take on the task, or will history repeat itself? Thank you for watching. If you're as interested in these advancements as we are, don't forget to like and subscribe and watch the next video now on your screen.